TOA community, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Robert Linkle, trainingtheolderadult.com, and I want to talk to you today about lower back pain, LBP. We're going to dive into that a little bit. Unofficial sponsor of today's video, Live Bearded. These are my guys over at Live Bearded out in Arizona. I want to give them a little shout out. If you have a beard, if you're bald, if you have a full head of hair, you need shampoo, body lotion, soaps, beard oil, beard butter, etc. They're the best. I love their shirts. I love all their gear. They're great dudes, and their company mantra is do better as a human being, and I absolutely love that. So do better. You'll see that all over the place. Anyway, I want to give them a shout out. All right, let's get into this. Please subscribe, like, follow, share, help us build the channel. We really appreciate it. Okay, let's talk about the WHO. Who? Not the band, the WHO. The World Health Organization. They put out some of this information not too long ago, and it's pretty scary. Now, I'm going to talk to you about this not only from a statistical standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. So I am going to share a little bit about my personal story with us too, but let's get into some facts. We'll kind of dive into that, and then I'll save some of my personal stuff for a little bit. In 2020, lower back pain, LBP abbreviated through this, affected 619 million people globally and is estimated to hit 843 million people by 2050. That's the biggest single disability worldwide, the biggest issue that we have worldwide. Almost everyone experiences lower back pain at some point in their life. 90% of the folks do. Prevalence increases with up to 80 years of age, with the highest lower back pain causes occurring around 50 to 55 and most prevalent in women. We'll talk about all that a little bit here too. Nonspecific lower back pain is the most common presentation of lower back pain in about 90% of the cases, meaning it just hurts, right? And so let's kind of dive into that a little bit. They've got this whole article on here. It goes into all kinds of information, talks about the scope of the problem, where you're really seeing it. A lot of it is based on inactivity. People that basically do what I'm doing at this moment, they sit way too long, they're overweight in terms of overfat, underconditioned, they don't have enough muscle mass, they don't have enough bone density, so that's a big issue. Drinking, smoking, especially smoking, leads a lot to lower back issues. Obesity, we talked about that. High physical stress, either at work or in life, and not sleeping well, surprisingly has a big component to do with that as well. Again, they talk about a lot of different strategies we can do here: physical therapy, just general fitness, psychological and social support. They talk about managing that and reducing your stress, reducing strain during physical work. So if you are a physical laborer, finding the appropriate ways to move about throughout the day. Let's say you're construction or yard work or something like that. You're not constantly bending over, you're learning to hinge properly, work on the ground, 3 or 4 points of contact at all times, that kind of thing. Life changes, including more physical activity, healthy diet, and good sleeping habits. And then the self-care down here, being physically active, optimizing mental well-being. I know we're hitting a lot of the same dots here. Maintaining a good healthy body weight, which is challenging because I am technically morbidly obese based on the BMI charts for medical and for health insurance. I'm 240 pounds, I'm 6'4", morbidly obese, okay? However, my body fat is under 20 and I'm a fit, healthy individual, but by those BMI charts, that's where things can get a little tricky. Don't necessarily go by that chart and say, well, are you an endomorph like me, bigger, wider, thicker individual? You can put on fat easy. Are you a mesomorph? You're right in the middle. You're super ripped. You can gain weight. You can lose weight. Are you an ectomorph? Are you rail thin? If it's really hard for you to put on either fat or muscle, all of those are going to have different parameters for you. Not smoking, really not having any tobacco consumption at all, getting good sleep, social engagements, work activities, and then ergonomics to your workplace. Having a computer desk like mine here that moves up and down. I have computers and cameras that move up and down. Everything is adjustable to fit a lifestyle for an individual with chronic lower back pain. And they talk about the difference between acute and chronic. Basically 6 weeks of lower back pain or less, that's kind of an acute case. And then anywhere from 12 weeks or more, that's chronic. I know there's 6 weeks in between there. It's kind of that lost zone where you're not quite short-term acute, but you're not quite chronic either. You're kind of lost in that in between. So this gives you a little bit idea of what lower back pain is, what some of the things you can do to improve it and reduce it. Now let's talk about the specifics here for a second. Let me share my story. 2000, 2000, I started throwing the hammer after 4 years of throwing discus and shot put in high school. When I got to college, I fell in love with the hammer. I loved it. If you don't know what the hammer is, basically it's a 16-pound shot ball with a 39-inch wire and a handle attached to it, and you spin around in a circle like a ballerina, and you unleash your fury, scream and yell, and throw that thing down a 30-degree sector, and the furthest throw in sector wins. Now, it's the most controlled, violent, beautiful, dynamic thing you'll ever see. It's controlled violence, okay? It's ballerina meets MMA in a combination of throwing something as far as you can. It takes a tremendous amount of force to apply through your body to do that well. And I was so obsessed and so in love with it that I overtrained myself to death. I didn't have a coach. And when I did get a coach later in my career, I didn't trust her, which is one of the biggest mistakes in my career. I admit that. I didn't trust her. I didn't think that the things that she was telling me to do, take rest days, not throw as much, not lift as heavy so close to competitions, to stop overtraining, I just didn't believe it because I wasn't talented enough to naturally fit in with all the guys I was throwing against. I felt like I had to be able to put in all that extra time to keep my place at the table, right? And so I didn't listen to anybody. Everyone told me, you're overtraining, you're gonna hurt yourself, etc. And 8 years of my career, the first 6 were pretty good. The last 2, I battled lower back pain. I got sponsored by a chiropractor, started going to that chiropractor monthly, and then every other week, and then every week, and then 3 days a week, just to be able to function daily on a regular basis. And what I found was the more adjustments that I had, the easier my back would slip in and out. Much like a brand new Rubik's Cube, it's very difficult to manipulate and move that. And the more you mess with it, the easier it is to slip and shift and move those things apart. I had a Rubik's Cube for about 10 years where the little blocks would just fall out at the end. And I really kind of feel that's a good analogy for how the back is if you don't maintain the musculature around it and if you keep forcing adjustments. When you have a lower back injury, and let's say it's bony based, meaning you slipped a disc or you have something that has occurred that needs to be adjusted or repositioned. Yes, it's probably fine to go have that readjusted if it's causing you, chronic pain. Some of these can slip into a position where you can't stand up, you can't lay down, you're constantly uncomfortable. Something needs to be done. You need steroid shots that'll reduce inflammation. You need a surgery that'll reduce the symptoms and reduce inflammation. You need an adjustment. You need something that's going to help you solve the problem. Sometimes it's just time, ice, anti-inflammatories, etc. Whatever it is, you'll need something. But what caused the problem, that's the issue. And almost always it's muscular imbalance or exposure to weakness. Exposure to weakness would be this. You're picking up all the weights in your gym and you're moving them to one side of the gym to set them down so you can clean underneath the dumbbell rack. Then you move all those dumbbells back. You just moved a couple thousand pounds. My back is fine. I'm completely good. No problem at all. You go home, you bend over, you don't hinge. You bend over to pick up the dryer lint sheets out of the dryer and out blows the disc in your back. Now, what happened? Was that dryer lint sheet too heavy? No. All of the work that you did before pre-exhausted you, and you probably weren't in the best positions. And then at the proper moment, the exact moment where you were exposed to injury, you were in a position where you didn't have your other hand down, you didn't have the proper hinge mechanics. As soon as your back was exposed with all that fatigue behind it, your back comes apart. And sometimes that's just a muscle that seizes and it pulls on a vertebrae and it slips a disc. And after a couple of days, things can go back to normal. Sometimes it's so violent, it ruptures and you're stuck. You're in trouble until that is surgically repaired the majority of the time, okay? The majority of the time. So you can't look at, I've had clients in the past, I don't want to pick up kettlebells. Those are dangerous. They're going to hurt my back. Tools are tools. Movements are movements. There's nothing out there that's specific. If I do this, I'm going to get a lower back injury. None of that is accurate. None of that is true. It is chronic overtraining and in improper positions, leaving you exposed to injury that make the big deals in this. So don't let anybody tell you deadlifts are dangerous, clean and jerks are dangerous, snatches are dangerous. All of those lifts are completely safe as long as you know how to do them properly and you're progressing them appropriately, right? So lifting is fine. It is not the culprit. I was my own worst enemy. 2008, I go in to start a training session after taking 4 weeks off through the holidays. I'm in there. I'm a 550-pound back squatter. I have 225 on there. I squat down my third or fourth rep. As I'm getting ready to come back up, I feel my L5-S1 disc rupture laterally across my back. I can feel it shoot out laterally out the side of my back. And I know instantly I am hurt. This is not a muscular injury. This is a structural bony injury. I'm instantly in pain. I instantly have pain down my leg. I know I am hurt, okay? But I'm in a gym that was just remodeled, and I'm literally the first person to ever back squat with these plates and this bar on my back. And in my head, I go, you can't drop these weights. So I stand up with 225 on the bar, I rack it, and I collapse back onto the ground, and I lay there for 90 minutes until the gym that I was in, which my wife was the opening coach for the front desk person. She would come in and prep the whole gym, right, and do the towels and all that stuff, get everything ready for people to come in at 8, but she allowed me in with her at 6:30 so I could be the first person to start in this rack. So for an hour and a half, I'm down there laying on the ground because I can't get up. I attempt over and over again. I'm in so much pain, I can't get up. So people finally start to come into the gym. The first 2 people down there help me get off the ground. I grab my stuff, I go up to Key, I'm like, I'm hurt. And she's like, we've done this a million times. You know, go home, take your muscle relaxers, lay up, do your thing. 3 days later, I end up having a bowel issue, if you know what I mean, that you can't control. That means that your body has a serious symptom, a serious injury. If you pee on yourself, you got a problem, okay? Nerves are being blocked and things are being, missignaled. That's a major warning sign that you're in trouble. Less than 24 hours later, I was in for surgery, okay? So that's my story and sharing that with you. 15 years ago, my doctor said, I'll see you in 10 years. You're gonna need another surgery. It's been 15, and I just got MRI results yesterday that aren't great. My back is definitely much worse than it was, but 15 years of working with it, getting it strong, all my hip issues that came along in there. 8 years later, I had a hip replacement, so my back was basically taking, the brunt of the force there when my hips were failing on me. So I feel blessed to have made it this far, but that's kind of what inspired the message behind today is let's look at lower back pain, see what we can do in the beginning to try to prevent people, 90% of you that are going to experience this, from having any long-term chronic issues. But also, if you are experiencing those, what are the options? What do we have? What can you do? Okay. So we've talked about all the things that you can do, but briefly, exercise is great for you. Rucking is one of the best things that you can do. Start very light. Remember, you were talking 5, 10, 15 pounds. Start light, go out for walks, get body fat off of you as best you can. Eat healthy. Eat foods that are not going to be high inflammatory based foods. I'm going to leave it to you to research that because there is a little bit of a one side and the other side on this, and I'm not taking any stances. There are inflammatory foods. A lot of people have opinions on that. Do some research, find foods that don't inflame your particular body, okay? That's going to help you a ton. Getting excess body fat off of your body is going to help you a ton. Increasing your muscle mass, not allowing sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass to the point where your abilities are now diminished. Your ability to sit up straight, your ability to function on a daily basis is diminished because you're so weak and frail. Okay, I'm going to use that word frail. Even at 30 years of age, you can be very frail for a 30-year-old because you're not allowing your body to build the musculature to move it about that it needs. We need muscle mass. The more muscle mass that you have, and this is proven, the longer you're going to live, the healthier you're going to live, the happier you're going to live, and the more abilities, experiences, etc., quality of life is going to be up through the roof. So I can't encourage you enough, even though you might have lower back pain, find a way to train with it that doesn't aggravate, but allows you to build muscle mass. And there are many ways to do that. I have not back squatted, deadlifted anything over 200 pounds in 15 plus years, and I've still been able to build size and mass and keep my legs and do all the things that I feel like are keeping me strong and healthy. You can do that too because I am genetically not a gifted individual, okay? There are plenty of you out there that have much better genetics than me that literally once or twice a week of just getting in there for 20, 30 minutes can make drastic changes, okay? But then you get folks like me where I have to train daily to keep my body moving well. It's the roll of the dice. It's whatever your genetics are, you got to find what works for you, okay? And I don't mean I'm lifting every day. I just mean that I am training. Mobility, power, strength, conditioning, metabolic, all this. I'm doing a little bit of something or a lot of something every day, but multiple things, okay? So being physically active, very important, but finding things that won't aggravate your back, key, okay? Mental well-being, cannot stress this enough, how reducing stress out of your life, which the exercise helps a lot with, basically takes a lot of stress and pressure off of your body. Majority of males are going to carry a lot of that stress in their lower back. A lot of women typically are going to carry it up around their neck, upper mid back, okay? These are just kind of common areas where you see more knots, more tension, more stress kind of built in there. These are both problematic areas. Reducing stress in your life is a great way to do that. Simplicities of taking time to meditate, close your eyes, reduce your stress, and just having some calm moments, all the way to more vacationing, to having more days off in the week, to having quiet time where you listen to music, whatever it takes. Try to find something mentally that helps reduce the amount of stress you have in your life. Healthy body weight. Again, you've got 3 different body types, okay? Endomorph, me, big guys, okay? Mesomorph, so you're really good looking bodybuilders, very fit, wide in the shoulders, maybe wide in the thighs, but narrow in the waist. Those are kind of the typical mesomorphs. This is male, female across the board. And then your ectomorphs are basically your distance runners, okay? So kind of think of it like strongman, and then bodybuilder, professional wrestler, and then distance runner. Those are kind of the 3 different frames for the most part, and there's plenty of crossover between those. And there's plenty of people that are very fit and that are very unfit in each of those categories. My point being is you got basically those 3 categories where most bodies lie. Each of them is going to have a different criteria for what is considered healthy. Now, let's also throw in sex, which one you are. Let's throw in your height. Let's throw in your age. Let's throw in the area that you live. All of these things are going to matter on what is healthiest or best for you. This is a very personalized thing that you're going to have to trial and error and find most efficient, most effective ways for you and your body to be very healthy, okay? And again, I encourage you to look into this, okay? Kind of hear what I'm saying, read between the lines, look into this, as there's many options out there, but again, want to stay in my scope and not get too wild. Stop smoking. There's literally zero argument. I don't mean to be a dick by saying this. If you smoke, stop. What you're doing is destroying your body. There is zero good that comes out of it. If the little high is what you want, there are other options for that, okay? I won't go into that one either, but there are other healthier options that grow naturally on this earth that aren't going to do as much damage, that you could literally just chew, and that's probably going to give you the same result. I'm not an expert on this. I am not a lose my control type of guy. I'm very in control. I'm very waffled like that. So anything that messes with my brain, I'm not a fan of it. So I'm speaking completely out of school. But there are other options out there that does not include you filling your lungs with tar and or all the other chemicals, I don't know, hundreds of different chemicals that are stuffed into a cigarette. It's not this natural, pure thing that it used to be, and even then it was still bad for you. So please stop smoking, okay? Please stop smoking. That goes for smokeless, chaw, chew, any of the other options. It's all the same. It's all causing damage. Look at Jim Kelly. Half of his face from the Bills, quarterback from the Bills, half his face is gone and completely rebuilt from jaw cancer. He's not the only one out there, okay? So please be careful and cautious about that. Get good sleep. Some people can manage 6 hours a night. Others need 9 or 10. My wife needs 9 or 10. I can handle 6 or 7. If I sleep more than that, my body hurts. If I sleep under that, my mind is not right. You got to find an amount of sleep that works well for you. Everybody's different. Not to mention, I forgot to mention this, not to mention the 3 different body types, okay? But then blood types are all very different for everyone as well. A lot of research that supports that, as well as if you're A, B positive, O, there's different nutritions, different diets, different climates in which those blood types will succeed. So another thing to look into. Again, I know very, very little about that. I just know that that does play a factor. That's something else you could look into. Being engaged socially, just social engagement is so healthy for us. You need to be involved with other people. Make sure you're not spending a ton of time by yourself. It can lead to higher levels of depression, which ultimately bring you higher levels of stress, which ultimately end up damaging your body more. And then ergonomic adjustments. Try to stand up as much as you can, walk as much as you can, take meetings, standing, walking, moving about, right? You got all your earpieces, all these other things that you can do. Adjustable countertops, adjustable computers, adjustable cameras. There's really no excuse in this time and age to be stuck in this forward position with your body posture being damaged, because you've got all these options. As we speak right now, let me show you. Okay, you're on an adjustable camera stand, but I also have a adjustable camera. Sorry if that's giving you a dizziness, but this guy, this whole thing lifts up and down. I've got my station, all my stuff, everything is right here for me to mess around and manipulate, and adjust this to fit my needs, my body, my standards when I'm doing a presentation, hosting a class, whatever I'm doing like we are now, okay? So take from that what you will. There's a lot to think about, especially if this is an area we're getting into. So, excuse me, general lower back pain, you're gonna experience actual pain in your lower back. Now, when I say that, you're like, well, of course, okay? What I mean by that is when you start to experience structural damage in your L1 all the way down to L1, L5, all the way down into your, that's L stands for labrum, okay? So labrum, your lumbar disc, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertebrae. There's discs in between each of those. And then under that's your sacrum, and there's 5 discs underneath that, okay? So you have 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, right? And then there's 3 coccyx, 7, 12, 5, 5, 4. There's 4 coccyx, okay? And that's your tailbone, really small little bones. Now, within all of those adjustments and pressures in there, there's a bubble, if you will, that's very gristly, like the gristle of fat you would find on a steak. And inside that, packed inside that is like crab meat, okay? So think of it like, you know those little cheeses that you can get at the store and they're wrapped in like the wax paper? Think of that stuffed in between each vertebrae, okay? And then you could pack it billions of times. But at some point, you're gonna put so much pressure and be in such a wrong position that some of that cheese is gonna start to squish out in one direction. Now you have a bulge, okay? So now you have a bulging disc, and this can push on nerve roots and different musculatures along the way, start to cause all kinds of different problems. The higher in your lumbar spine, the higher the symptoms, back, butt, high hamstring. The lower, the further down your leg, it's gonna kind of stem down into your heel and your pinky toe, your foot, etc. Really, really bad ones can cause drop toe, drag foot, you know, these kinds of issues where people end up limping, dragging their foot along. The signal is not getting sent down to the foot to say, lift your toe up, roll your foot smoothly. And so you end up having to swing your leg or wobble or drag it, and it just causes all kinds of issues, okay? So thinking that in the beginning, I might just have a muscular issue, I'll feel like, my lower back is really stiff and tight. That's something you can address. That's early onset, that's acute. Those are things, it's like a warning sign. Stop doing what you're doing, figure out what that is because you're causing damage. If the muscles on the back, typically, if the muscles on the back are starting to hurt, damage to the structure underneath is occurring as well. You just don't know it yet, okay? So as you continue to abuse your lower back and go and go and go and go, now we start to get some bulges. And again, at least 90% of the people over the age of 30 have at least one episode of lower back pain. A lot of those will start to become disc problems. Now, as that disc problem starts to become more severe, we're gonna dive into the New Jersey Spine Orthopedic website. They've got some good stuff. That was the one that came up there first. And this is from ISSA. We'll come back to these in just a moment. But I wanna show you this guy. Once the bulge kind of pushes out far enough and there's enough pressure put on it, at some point, and with a bulge, it can push out. And if you stop doing whatever you're doing to make that occur, back squatting, jumping, bending over, etc., then it can regress and pull back and you can be healed up. But if not, if you continue, it's gonna rupture, just like in that picture that you see there. It'll squirt out. And once it's out, as my doctor said, you can't put the crab meat back in the crab. It's out. You're in trouble now. Your 1 inch of space between vertebrae is now a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch because the jelly is out of the jelly donut, right? So what they do is they drill in, and this is a discectomy or some of these other surgeries, where they drill in, right, in between the bone, and they have this little drill that goes in there, and it's pretty minimally invasive. And they have like a straw that goes over the drill, and then another straw that goes over that one that dilates a little bigger, and then another one, and another one, and another one. They basically space it to where they have a big enough thing, and then they pull all the other ones out, and now they have this big circular area that's about 2 inches that they can reach tools in there and work. And they will chisel away a piece of the bone if they need to, take out any bone spurs, any issues that you have, and they'll find all the crab meat, and they got a little thing that's a little trimmer, it looks like a little hockey stick, and it's got these little teeth on it, and it goes in there and it'll chim away all of that ruptured crab meat. And in some cases, they will cauterize or burn it shut or sew it shut or whatever it does to like close that up. And then they'll piece you back together and stitch up your 1 to 2 inch seam, and then you're good. You go home and recover for 2 to 4 weeks, and then you can resume life for the most part. That's a pretty minimally invasive. That's what I had done to my back. That was my discectomy for my L5S1 disc. Now, my injury now is still there, plus all the other ones above, bulge, 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 bulge. I've got bulges on all of them, but I've got one that is now starting to herniate, and it's above the area that I injured before. So I'm looking at something very similar to this, okay? Again, using this as a learning experience, not as a woe is me. I've had cancer twice. I've had we've had all kinds of other stuff. This is just another chapter of the book, man. I'm good. We're gonna tackle this one. I've got a shoulder surgery coming up at some point. I'm sure I'm gonna have more. I'm gonna have to have my hips replaced again at some point. So all these things, they're just accepted parts of life, the damage that I've done. Okay. All right. So once we kind of see what's going on here, then you go, okay, there's damage that's being done. There are some things that you can do. So let's go back up here. Definitely movements that you don't want to do, but again, they do encourage you to stop heavy lifting, but they don't tell you to stop exercising, okay? They just tell you to stop doing exercises that are causing symptoms. So there are certain ones like deadlifts, back squats, and front squats that are going to directly load your lower back, and if there's an injury there, you have to drastically cut that weight, rehabilitate muscles all the way around it, and slowly build back. I'm not saying you can't do those. Definitely don't do them heavy, and you got to rebuild back up. But things like sit-ups, crunches, supermans, different movements there, they are going to cause more stress and damage than good. I don't want to go too deep, as I've done other presentations, other talks about why spinal flexion of your sternum towards your pelvis does nothing good for your lower back, okay? The iliopsoas and the psoas and the iliacus muscle make up your iliopsoas, and they both originate on the back of the spine and insert on the front of your hip. And every time you try to flex and sit up or bring your knees up to your chest, you're pulling on those muscles, you're pulling on those bones, and damage is more than likely going to occur, okay? So kind of keeping that in mind as we move along through here. They give you a little bit more information, average ages, percentages, are very similar to what we talked about before. When you get to the point of the herniation, some major issues are coming up. They talk about high impact activities, running, jumping, bounding, any kind of grappling, wrestling, tumbling, all that stuff's going to hurt. So you're going to have to back way off and really rehabilitate and rebuild this whole thing from the get-go. This is a really great book. I want to take a minute to show you this. This is A Gift of Injury. This is from Stewart McGill. One of the greatest compliments of my life. This was very cool and very unexpected. I went to a conference where Stewart was presenting. This book had just come out, and he came up to me and he goes, "Robert Linkle, I know your work." And I was floored because I was just about to say the same thing to him. And dude shows up with a autographed book specific to me, filled out to me. I mean, talk about meeting one of your heroes and not being disappointed. That was cool as shit. So anyhow, I wanted to give him a shout out. This is truly a accurate and a brilliant name, because every injury is a gift. And in this book, not only are you going to learn about their backgrounds, him and Brian Carroll, powerlifter, who was told by multiple doctors, and they give you all the quotes in there, you're never going to lift again. You have to promise you're never going to lift again. And he works with Stu. He has a surgery. He has all kinds of different therapies. They do cadavers. They do all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, they're showing MRIs. Look at the cadaver chunk up there. I know these aren't the best pictures. I had to screen grab of a picture of my phone of the book. Okay. But I mean, they take you through some great stuff in here. It's an excellent book. It takes you through all kinds of different strategies and procedures that they did to help get him back to the point where he ends up competing again very, very well. And if not winning, I believe he wins or sets world records again. Forward by Bill Kazmaier, 3-time world strongman. It's a great read. I went through the back half, which is all focused on the science and the application of the programming. I did not read the front half, which is basically Brian's story and how they get there. I was kind of skimming it today just so I could be able to talk about it somewhat correctly with all of you. But this gives you some really good insight, some really good information on how to be able to train with some of these lower back injuries. And it's going to take some really creative programming. You notice I work a lot with the flywheel because I can hook it to my hips and not to my spine and my upper torso. I do a lot of sit-to-stands where I'm belting weight around my hips and not around my upper body or my torso. There's a lot of mechanics that you're going to have to change. We do way more horizontal rowing than vertical rowing, like a hinged row, bent over row. I simply can't do those things anymore. Overhead pressing is very, very difficult. Overhead pulling, so throwing snatches and weight over my head, I can handle a lot more than just sitting strictly pressing heavy loads overhead. We still overhead press, I just can't do it real heavy. There's different mechanics, half kneeling position that protects my back versus kneeling or seated that does not. certain strategies. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody, in which you're going to have to troubleshoot. And if you don't know what those options are, you're going to have to find somebody to work with. So from the basics of, I'm starting to get some lower back discomfort, I'm having some muscular issues, to a bulging disc, acute to a bulging disc, chronic to a herniated disc, which is permanent and chronic, surgeries, rehabs, different strategies, therapies, etc. There's a whole slew, plus all the different body types, plus all the different blood types, plus all the different climates that you live in, the different styles of training. My point is, you can't just say lower back pain is, look at all the things that we just talked about. And you can't say, here's how to rehabilitate from, look at all the different things we just talked about. It's extremely personal. It's extremely personalized. And you need to have somebody that's going to look at you as an individual and say, here's a program that's going to work best for you. Here's what commonly works for people of your size and stature. And that's what we do with people. My guy Chris is sitting outside right now. I was showing chunks of his lower back surgery. He had chunks of crab meat taken out. I was just showing that to a client the other day. I have another client who's going in for a discectomy soon. Like, this is a very personal thing, but you can recover, rehabilitate, and rebuild your way back to living and being, if not just as healthy and capable as able, if not more. I'm more athletic and capable now than I was the last 3-4 years of my throwing career, because I was, technically disabled by my injury, not abled and capable by getting better. I was just putting Band-Aids on this to try to get me through so I could try to get to the highest level possible. Was not a smart approach. But all those experiences were the gift of injury that allowed me to be able to work with people, make videos like this, and share with individuals moving forward. Any comments, questions, hit me up down below. If not, please continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia. I will see you in the next one. Much love to all of you. Share, subscribe, ring that bell. Don't miss anything else that we put out. All the best. Love you.